Greetings and welcome. I'm the anti-philosopher. From an early age, people ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do with your life? Do you want to be a doctor? A lawyer? Do you want to be a writer, an actor, a musician? An engineer? A policeman? A firefighter? Do you want to manage a convenience store? An entrepreneur? As if you only do and only are one thing. But it's not hard to see why. We live in an increasingly specialized, post-industrial, techno-scientific era. There is so much information out there. In fact, all the way back in the 1950s, I think it was Carl Jung who said that we were inundated with too much information. And I just think to myself, well, buddy, if you were alive now in 2019, if we were inundated with too much information in the 1950s, then the situation is off the charts now. So, you cannot dip your foot into so many lakes anymore. At least not to the same extent. But I would like to try to be a generalist in this specialized age. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, in terms of my career, there are three things I would like to be. I would like to be a scientist, I would like to be a philosopher, and I would like to be a writer. Let me break that down. The natural sciences follow what is known as the scientific method. The scientific method is the best tool we have for understanding the fundamentals of reality. It's not perfect, which should be obvious, but apparently we still have to say things like, oh, it's not perfect. It isn't perfect, but it's the best we have come up with. And so I would like to spend at least part of my professional life understanding the scientific method and applying it. Particularly, my interests lay in the biological sciences. I'm not sure yet if I want to be an evolutionary biologist, a wildlife biologist, a physical anthropologist, maybe even a doctor, or a neuroscientist. Physics and chemistry are, of course, fascinating and important. They just don't capture my curiosity as much. The life, the life itself, and by, I mean the living world, the biological framework, is what captures my interest. In fact, when I was younger in elementary school, I was obsessed with zoology. I didn't know it was called zoology then. So what I would have said if I'd known the terminology was I want to be a zoologist. But I didn't, as I say, I didn't know that term, so I just said to everybody, I want to be an animal scientist. I mean, I was obsessed. It was from a young age, from about 6 or 7 to around 11 or 12. It was pretty much all I thought about. The diversity of life just astounded me, and I would just read all these all these books on animals. I would watch all these documentaries. I was an encyclopedia of zoology. Now, for some reason, I stopped being interested in that, and I went into another obsession, and I would most certainly call them obsessions. My obsession after zoology was cartooning. Now, from an early age, I had enjoyed drawing, and I also enjoyed writing stories and coming up with characters, these elaborate plots. And so I'd be, at that point, at first, so when I was younger, I said I wanted to be an animal scientist. Then it became, I got to be a cartoonist. That's that's what I want to be with my life. So I learned all I could about, particularly comic strips, the newspaper comics. I would, instead of reading a bunch of books on animals, I read all the collections of comic strips. The Far Side, Garfield, Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, Pearls Before Swine, the whole 9 yards. And I would study the joke setup, and I would imitate and try to, create my own comics. And I'd say that obsessions started or went from around 13 or 14 to 15 or 16. Or it might have started a little earlier. It might have been near the tail end of my zoological obsession. Maybe it was more like 11 to 12 to like 15 or so. And then from 15 or 16 to well, not too long ago, actually, to be honest with you. I'm 19. So maybe around 18 or so. I wanted to be a writer, a poet, playwright, novelist, essayist, all that stuff. And so I would just fill notebook after notebook after notebook with all the different kinds of poems and stories and jottings, thoughts, essays. And that was also around the same time that I found philosophy. And in fact, I'm still obsessed with philosophy to this very day. In fact, so once again, read all these philosophical works and books and watch these documentaries about philosophy and philosophers. And now, not too long ago, I was thinking to myself, as I often do, I still want to be a writer. And a few months ago, I think I was saying, I want to be a writer and a philosopher. And during the obsession, during my writing obsession, my obsession to be the next Tolstoy or Shakespeare, I've lost my train of thought. It's getting late here, by the way. So during that obsession period with literature and with writing, that's I basically considered it my salvation. It was like I felt like I couldn't do anything else. I felt like I had to be a writer, and that was it. If I could just be a writer, if I could just write books, and novels, and publish poetry, that's all. That's all that matters. Then I would be saved. Then I would be okay. But recently, I was thinking to myself, I don't want to just be a writer. I still love writing. Don't get me wrong, and I want to be a writer. But I don't just want to be a writer. And so I say I want to be a scientist, a philosopher, and a writer because I think those are the three fundamental ways of examining the universe and our place in the universe. As I said, the natural sciences are the best way to get at reality around us. Philosophy, which means meant originally the love of wisdom, I think helps us think about how to live, and art teaches us about questions of beauty, and gives a certain level of meaning that I think without art, life would be severely deficient. Of course, science and art becomes the objective versus the subjective, and I suppose on that spectrum, philosophy would be more in the middle. So I don't know if I can accomplish this. Maybe, as I said, it's impossible to be a generalist. Maybe I will be forced to say, okay, I either need to be a scientist, a philosopher, or a writer, or something completely different, and do a few other things maybe as hobbies on the side. Maybe I cannot be a successful author, philosopher, and scientist. Maybe. But I'd like to try. Because I want to be able to look at the universe from all three of those angles. I think all three of them are extremely important, and the educated person needs to have at least a basic understanding of all three. You don't have to be a scientist, philosopher, and an author, or a writer, or an artist, more generally, to understand or appreciate these things. But you need at least a basic understanding of all three. Because I think without one of them, if you take away philosophy, you lose a certain amount of perspective. Well, that can be true for all of them. But taking them one by one, if you take away the natural sciences, you lose a certain foundation. If you take away art, you lose a certain level of emotional truth. And if you take away philosophy, you lose wisdom. Yeah, if you take away science, you lose knowledge. Take away philosophy, you lose wisdom. And if you take away art, you lose beauty. So it's getting late, and I think I've far exceeded the length that I meant for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I only have one subscriber, so hey, thank you, whoever you are. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. What obligatory end of YouTube video messages. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.